guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Nastasia. I'm so happy you're here. I have another different background, which I will go into more next week in that video, but long story short, we moved again. But yeah, so today's video is not about that, but if you're wondering, yes, different background. Today's video I'm very excited about. It is kind of 5 tips on being a biblical wife. Now, this is not me saying I'm perfect. We have been married a little over a year now, so I definitely don't have like 20 years under my belt or anything like that, but I also feel like the Lord has taught me a lot in 1 year, and I figure this can be kind of a thing that grows on itself there, because there are definitely more than just 5 tips. There's probably thousands, and so I'm sure there's lots of videos like this to come in the future, but I'm also very excited because it is a collab. Lindsey, I think her last name is pronounced Maestas, anyway, but Lindsey, she has the Living Easy podcast, and in that she just gives so much biblical wisdom, and it's really an encouraging podcast. And after I started this course that I'm going to talk about that they sent over to me, it made me want to listen to her podcast even more. But they sent me the Wife Project course, and I have been working through it, and I absolutely love it. Honestly, like, not that I already had really amazing hopes for it, but like, it's even better than I expected it to be. So it is a collab with the Wife Project course, and I'm just really excited for you guys to get your hands on this course. It is all about becoming a biblical wife, or I guess building upon being a biblical wife, and it's so founded in scripture and just like not focused on what your husband is or isn't doing, but focusing on you, your relationship with the Lord, you being the best wife you can be, not in a perfectionist mindset or anything like that, but just honestly to honor and glorify the Lord and to bring honor to your husband. And I just, chef's kiss. I love it so much. I'm not finished with the course yet. I am easing my way through it in the best way. I'm just trying to soak in every morsel of it. But this ties perfectly in with this video because I've learned so many lessons just even from that course alone about being a biblical wife and just what it looks like to honor the Lord and your husband, and how it really fulfills you so much to fill your cup with the Lord, and then how that overflows into how you are as a wife, and also even as a daughter, a sister, just everything like that. So I'm very excited to be collabing with them today. I'm going to be mentioning a few things throughout this video that she really inspired and encouraged in me. If you end up liking this video, give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on a video every time I post. My Instagram is right here, where you can see the behind the scenes of my life. And thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon. You're so amazing. Thank you so much for supporting me over there. If you're interested in supporting me on Patreon, I will have that link down below. I post videos throughout the month, every month, and there's 3 different levels to choose from. So if you like my content, you will definitely like hanging out over there. The community is so great. I love everybody over there. So anyway, I want to preface this, like, going into this first tip by saying, even if you are not a wife yet, if you are engaged, if you are dating, if you just know you want to be a wife one day, anything like that, these tips apply to you. I fully believe you can never start preparing too early for biblical wifehood. I just think it's an incredible gift, and yes, some are called to singleness, and that is also an incredible gift, and one is not higher than the other. But this one's just focused specifically on biblical wifehood. But yeah, I hope that these tips encourage you, bring you joy. None of this is to bring you any kind of shame whatsoever. And at the end of the day, I want you to feel refreshed after hearing something like this. I want you to, you know, feel full of life. I don't want you to feel any guilt or shame with anything. Not that any of these are guilt, shame ridden, but I'm just saying that's where my heart is, and I'm really excited to get into this. So the first tip that I have, which is really, it is the most important tip, and it encompasses so much. It is to put Jesus first, even over your husband, over your children, over everything. And before you're like, yeah, skip ahead, I already know that one, I'm getting into it a little bit more. The biggest reason that I say this is, well, one, your foundation of Christ is the foundation of your marriage. Why do over 50% of marriages nowadays end in divorce? I mean, people could say there's all sorts of reasons, but at the end of the day, Satan is after your marriage. He is. And the only way to withstand, the waves of this world and of our flesh and of the enemy and all these things is having a solid rock foundation of Christ. And that you have to work at every single day. Like, your salvation might be secured, but that doesn't mean you can neglect the other things just because, you're saved, hallelujah. But that doesn't mean you neglect, getting in your word and prayer and all that stuff, because Satan will always try to find a foothold. And the second reason too is because I did not realize this, but there are so many people, including myself, I think 90% of people go into marriage, whether you're a Christian or not, thinking somehow being married is going to heal or fix or fulfill something inside of me. Even if you think it's just one tiny thing or something like that, it is so common to fall into that trap, and it is a trap because you get there and even maybe right away, like in the honeymoon phase and all that stuff, you don't see it. You're like, yeah, see, this is great, this is perfect, life is great. But like an example for me is I didn't realize that I was going to find so much of, like, let me explain. When I was engaged and stuff like that, I was like, when I get married, I'm never going to have any insecurities again about my appearance. I'm never going to feel insecure because I'm gonna have a husband who loves me and he's gonna think I'm gorgeous and hot all the time, and I'm never gonna struggle with that ever again. And what a lie. It doesn't make your insecurities go away. It doesn't do any of that. And one of the reasons is because your spouse is not God, and they are never going to be able to fulfill and fill up the void inside of you that only God can fill. And so even if you are saved, that's incredible. Your salvation is secured. That doesn't mean, though, that you stop filling up your cup with the Lord and His Word. And so it is not only a disservice to your spouse, but also to yourself when you are looking to them to try to complete you and fill you up. Now that doesn't mean that they don't have, some kind of responsibilities. We have roles, right? And we want to encourage each other in marriage. But like, for me to rely on Kai, my husband, to fill me up with joy or even happiness or different things like that, it's not fair. It's not fair to him, because that means I am putting my emotions and my my health, really, my emotional health and everything on his shoulders. So what happens if he's having a bad day? He's not allowed to have a bad day, like, because I'll crumble. You have to make your foundation the Lord. And so that is the first tip. Really, I could do a whole video just about that in itself. But to be walking as a biblical wife and to be trying to refine, like allow the Lord to refine you every single day, the first step is you have to fill your cup with the Lord first. So that, I'm not perfect at this by any means. That means really diving deep into your word, the word of the Lord, and seeing what does He say to you. Because so many people want to know, well, how do you hear God? How do you know what He's saying? Read His word. Like, you should want to read His word. And something I appreciate is that in the Wife Project course, she goes into this right away. She makes this very clear. You cannot be relying on your spouse to fulfill you, because you're setting yourself up for disaster. You're setting him up for disaster. Like, it's not a good scenario. And you have a God who wants to fulfill you in that way. And He is good at it, really, really good, the best at it. And so I really like that she focused on that first. It was a great foundation, which is why I also wanted to mention it first. Number 2 is to fully embrace your role as a wife. And specifically what I wanted to focus on is being His helpmate and submitting to Him. So people don't like talking about this. I realize I don't really get why. Because submitting to your husband is not this demeaning thing where you are, this is different than if you are in an abusive situation or something like that. That is completely different. I want to put that out there. Submitting, what I mean by that is in the biblical manner of the Lord is over your husband and your husband is over you. And so a lot of people think that means, oh, well then I don't get to, ever make any decisions and he can just take advantage of me on all this stuff. Nobody talks about the fact that your husband, the decisions he makes for your family, they are off your hands and your shoulders. He has to answer to the Lord for those decisions. So to me, it is a huge weight off my shoulders because, not to get totally into it, but when I was growing up, there was a lot of different seasons, different times, not that it was all bad or anything, but there were a lot of times that I had to grow up very fast, and I didn't have a lot of opportunities where I was able to see other people take responsibility for all the decisions and me just be able to sit back and be taken care of. I felt like I had to grow up very fast. And so to me, actually, this was not a struggle for me when I got married. I love 98% of the time, because I'll say I'm obviously not perfect at this, but most of the time I do not struggle with submitting because I'm like, sweet, you make the decision. I do not want that pressure on me. I do not want that. But there is more to it, obviously. And she actually goes into, Lindsey in the course, she goes into the full definition, like the original Greek, it's either Greek or Hebrew, sorry, of the word for helpmate, of how it describes Eve. When the Lord says it is not good for man to be alone, I will make a helper suitable for him. And he's talking about woman. And again, people see this as such a, or I don't want to say all people, a lot of society sees this as a demeaning thing. Oh, she's just a helper, like blah, 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 all this stuff. But an example that I love she used, and it was like, yes, that is so true. Like if you imagine telling somebody, let me help you. Usually a person that needs help has some kind of weakness in that area, in that moment, in that season, that you have strength to help them in. It is not a demeaning thing on either side. It is the fact that your husband has strengths and weaknesses, you have strengths and weaknesses, your strengths complement them, their strengths complement you. It is an incredible thing. And I think when we try to step out of that role, or we try to think like we get to this selfish place of, well, they don't deserve me to do this and blah 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 blah, what we don't realize is we are also hurting ourselves in turn by stepping outside of that role. We were specifically created as wives to step into these roles because it's also good for us, and it is good for the kingdom, and it is good for the glory of God. And so even at times when your husband doesn't deserve you to submit to him or whatever it is, you have to remember the bigger picture is that God calls you to. And so, and also she goes into different aspects in the course of like what to do if your husband isn't a spiritual leader, what to do, So if you have questions about that, this course is so for you because she covers different subjects like that. Again, I will have the link down below in all of that. But she covers those things. So if your next question is that, highly recommend the course. But in a situation where you do have, especially a biblical leading husband that might just be having a hard time right now or a hard day, that doesn't mean that just because he is having a struggling day, that immediately your entire role changes. You are still called to be the woman God has called you to be. 3, and while this does go in, kind of plays into number 1 of putting the Lord first, I wanted to specifically highlight this. Pray for your husband every single day. And before you skip through and be like, I already know this, let me tell you a little story. I did not realize how much my lack of praying for my husband directly in real time affects his life. I thought, if anything, my lack of prayer life, my lack of praying for him might just affect me. I'm the only one who gets hurt. I'm the only one in the crossfire, whatever. When you become one, when you get married, you become one, if you didn't know that, through a covenant. When you become one, there are a lot of mysteries that happen that I can't even fully comprehend or explain, but there is nothing anymore that is just going to only affect you. And so I realized when I am not only slacking, but just being like, whatever, it doesn't make a difference, and just not actively praying for my husband, it has a detrimental effect on the day-to-day of his life, his heart, all of it. And that is enough for me to go, absolutely not. I don't care how exhausted I am. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care about any of that. I love my husband too much to not pray for him. Prayer is genuinely one of the most powerful things we can possibly do. I would say the most powerful, but I also think reading and memorizing scripture is up there too, so maybe they're tied. But like, I think we so often go to this place of, well, all you can do is pray now, instead of like it being like the C or D answer, instead of what you can do is pray, like to the God of the universe, and he moves mountains. And on to that, I want to add in, listen to yourself when you're praying to the Lord about your husband. Are you praying things like, Lord, can you please just help my husband not do this anymore? Or help him to do this, or help him to do this, whatever it is, from like more of a selfish motive? Or are you actually praying for his heart? Are you actually praying out of love, out of a fullness of love for your husband and a fullness of love for the Lord who made your husband? I would ask you and challenge you to try to think that way. You can also ask the Holy Spirit to help you pray, to help you know what to pray for. Sometimes I'll ask the Lord, what do you want me to pray for my husband that I might not even know about? And this one is a little bit shorter. I know I've been making them very, very long, but I just want to give you as much kind of value out of this video as possible. This one is, okay, it's kind of two things, but it is just to honor your husband well. And when there's two things with that. One is watch the way that you talk about him to other people around you, whether he is physically present there or not. And the second one is to honor him with grace and mercy when he falls short. So the first one is, I realized there's a lot of different times where if I feel awkward in a situation, I try to fill the room with some kind of funny thing. Sometimes it's self-deprecating humor, different things, whatever. I'm working on it. I'm working on not feeling like I have to fill the room with some kind of noise and jokes or something like that. But I realized sometimes I would poke fun of my husband, and I didn't ever intend it for harm. However, it was still not fully encouraging to him, and it was still not lifting him up. It was still kind of like poking at. And even though in my heart I thought it's just fun, it's just, I'm just trying to be funny, and I'm just trying to, I still love you, I'm not doing this to hurt you. It doesn't really matter what the intention is if it hurts him. And so after that, I was honestly hurt that I hurt him, because it was not ever my intention. But ever since then, I have been very careful, not scared, just careful. I want to always encourage and lift up my husband, whether he is physically with me or not. Like, I do not subscribe to whatever movement it is where you get together with your girlfriends and you just bash your husbands. Absolutely not. And I am not interested in any friendship like that, if I'm being honest. That's one. And then the other one is, let's say, there is some kind of financial decision or something like that you talk through, and you're like, I don't know, babe. This is just an example. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is a good idea. And he is like, I think this is a good idea. I think this is, and I really believe in this, and I think we should do it. And you can tell he's not just being dumb, especially, but like, you even if you don't feel that way, you are submitting to him. And then let's say the financial decision didn't work out well and you ended up being right. It can be really tempting to say, I told you so, or even internally going, I am never letting him make another financial decision again. I am never doing this, I'm never doing that, blah, 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 blah. Do not do that. most of the time in a situation like this, they already feel horrible. They already feel like the worst, right? And you saying, I told you so, or giving them a look or whatever, just piles shame on them. And not only that, it immediately makes them feel like you are no longer in their corner. You are no longer their biggest support. And honestly, you want to be your husband's biggest cheerleader in the world, you know? You want to be the one who believes in his crazy dreams and the one who says, babe, you can do it, and I know you can, and I'm right here. And even if something happens, I'm right here, and I love you. Like, you want to be that person that if the world doubts him and all this stuff, that you are standing strong next to him, and you breaking him down by saying, I told you so, or even acting like I told you so, you know what I mean? And not encouraging him, that eats away at a marriage. And so what I would encourage you instead to do is, when you can tell he is feeling down and a little bit like a kicked dog, to just come up next to him, to hug him, to kiss him, whatever. Just be like, I love you. Everything's gonna be okay. You know, like, I am here with you and it's gonna be all right. And then a lot of times I feel like men will start lashing out, not at you, but at themselves. It's like, no, it's not gonna be okay. I did this happened and blah, blah. How can you say it's gonna be okay? They're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves. They're mad at the situation. They feel embarrassed, whatever it is. And to that I would say, hey, we're a team and I'm here with you. And this is just one thing. This is just one season. God's gonna get us through. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. And I'm here. I'm here for you. And it's gonna be fine. And usually that'll break them down a little bit in a good way. And they might even apologize or do whatever it is. And I would just encourage you to just have so much grace and compassion in that moment. Like, see that as an opportunity, even if you're mad, even if you're sad, even if you're freaking out on the inside, take it as an opportunity to say, am I going to be like the world right now and tear down my husband? Because that's what the enemy wants you to do. Or am I going to defy all of that and instead be my husband's helpmate? He is weak right now in this moment, and I can give him strength through my love, through my support, through my grace and mercy, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. Okay, the last one I'm going to talk about today, number 5, is figure out what he loves, the best way you love him, like how he feels well loved by you, and do those things more. I know, that sounds obvious, but it is also easier said than done. For example, I hate cooking. And it just so happens that Kai, my husband's favorite way for me to love him, is cooking for him and making him food and baking for him. I don't mind baking as much, but cooking I hate so much. And the worst part is, actually, I think I'm a pretty darn good cook, but I just don't enjoy it at all. That is not an easy passion for me. So if you're somebody out there who you're like, easy for you to say, you already love doing this. Like, what about serving your husband when you hate it? I get it. I really, really do. Fun fact, I was driving home today listening to the Wife Project course. Their videos, it's super easy. You can listen to it like on your computer or on your phone like I was. It makes it really, really easy. And I was listening to it, and she was talking about ways to serve your husband, and just like doing it not even for him necessarily all the time, especially if you don't think he deserves it, and instead denying your flesh in that moment and doing it because it honors the Lord too when you love your husband well. And in that moment I decided I'm going to Kroger, I'm getting some ingredients, and I'm going to make one of my husband's favorite meals. And so I came home and I did that. And that's not me tooting my own horn or something like that, but it was one of those moments where I was like, no, I can do this, and I know he will love it if I do. And the first thing he said when I told him I was going to make it for him was, look at you loving me so well. Like, he was so happy. And it was one of the sweet moments. But point being, your husbands might not be food necessarily. He might be like, I could not care less about food. But this, you know, whatever it is, like Kai, he could not care less if things are clean, honestly. But I like things clean, so I try to keep them clean. But anyway, whatever your husband's things are, whether that be physical touch, or it could be the normal love languages like affirmations or stuff, or it could be very specific things, or it could be, you know, another one of Kai's is me going to the gym with him and us working out together. It's a little hard again, 8 months pregnant, but we'll get back to it. But that's something he loves. He loves that I take part in that passion of his. And so again, this is not the time to say, well, what about what my husband does? He doesn't serve me. He doesn't do this. We're not focusing on our husbands. Again, that's something else the Wife Project course talks about. We are not focusing on what your husband does or does not do right now. Unless, again, if it is an abusive situation or something like that, you should contact somebody. You should contact your church. You should contact family. You should contact authorities if you need to. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a moment where it's like, I don't want to do this because he's so lazy and this, whatever. It is not about him and what he does or doesn't do. This is about you. This is about your heart. This is about your relationship with the Lord, what he's called you to do, who he's called you to be as a wife. It will never, ever return void when you follow the commandments of God and when you honor the Lord in that way. And I think you would be surprised how many mountains are moved when your husband sees you loving him in spite of, or despite him, in spite of him, whatever the word is. Like, despite him, you are loving him well. Despite whatever failures he's doing, however he's falling short. It shows the love of God. So anyway, I hope that makes sense, but figure out ways, even write them down if you have to, of that your husband feels loved by you, and do those things. I will have the link down below to the Wife Project. I highly, highly, highly encourage you guys to check it out. It's so worth it. You can tell just the biblical wisdom that she has in teaching this is like, it really does like refresh your soul. And it's for, you know, honestly, I feel like any woman. I really do, because there's so much applicable knowledge there, and it really focuses on, you know, being a biblical wife and loving him instead of fixing him. And I think it's the most perfect approach you could take to a course like this. So I will have that link down below. Thank you so much to them for collabing with me. Check out her podcast as well. I'll link her podcast down below too. It's called the Living Easy podcast, if you didn't know. So there's also that. I would highly encourage you to check that out. So I love you guys so much, and I really appreciate you watching today. If you like videos like this, let me know so I can make it kind of more of a series. So I'll see you soon. Bye guys.